Shri Radha Krishna Go Gop Gopinath Shyamakunda Radha Kunijiri Govardhana Shri Vrindavan Dhama Ki Shri Mayapur Dhama Ki Ganga Maya Ki Guru Maya Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Tulasi Devi Ki Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jainitai Gaura Prema. All glories to Sampurna. All glories to Sampurna. All glories to Sampurna. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gaura. All glories to Shri Guru.
So, I'm sure most of you know we're just guest speakers today, but we've been asked to give a brief introduction. So this is His Holiness Bhaktivedanta Maharaj. The Maharaj has been associated with the movement since '73, initiated by Srila Prabhupada, and has spent the last 30 or so years in Mayapur, teaching in the Gurukul, working on curriculum. Maharaj travels around the world, spends a couple of months out, and he speaks on relationships, Vedic psychology, and like that. So, today is questions and answers, and we've been told that you've all got nice questions to ask, so please don't feel shy. Your questions will benefit. Your questions will benefit everyone else. So, and also pay attention to those people who are asking the questions, so they'll also benefit you. No, it's not that specifically that's their problem, it's not your problem. Okay.
So, rumor has it it's supposed to be a discussion on grihasta ashram. So everybody here is either involved in it or wants to be involved in it. Or involved in it. They're all too late. Too late. Or maybe you do. Not so. Oh, knee, okay, knee deep means head is down.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Anybody else needs to sit on the chairs? Just feel free. Okay. See, basically, you're working on, you're working on eternal principles here. Right? Means what we're going to be discussing is directly male-female relationship. Okay? So, you're trying to, means the principles on how, what is masculine, what is feminine, and how they relate to each other. These are eternal principles. These principles are followed, it will work. Right? But you have to understand what it is that you're working on. Basically, you're starting off with, some background. Means Krishna means masculine. Masculine means that independent. Okay? Independent meaning that they can function on their own. without specifically connection to something else. Right? But in that state, there is no connection to anyone else. That also has to be understood. Right? So basically, so we see Krishna originally is in this position of Atmarama. Right? It says Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is one. Then he expands his energies, then there's two. Right? So Radharani is the complete internal potency. Right? So that's the Adi Ras. All relationships are there, and so from that, all other relationships expand. In other words, all other energy expands from Srimati Radharani. So then, we see as therefore, then the masculine principle now interrelates with the feminine principle. Right? But on whose terms? This is the point. His terms or the energy's terms? Right? So probably if we drew a line from that corner over to this corner, we'd probably find that side is thinking it's based on the energy. And this side is thinking it's based on Krishna. Yes? No? Yes. Yeah. Okay. How does Krishna deal with Mother Jashoda? What's it based on? Right? She wants to serve Krishna as his mother. So how does he relate to her? As a son. The cowherd boys want to relate to Krishna as friends, and play and do that. So how does Krishna reciprocate that? As friends. Right? The cows want to serve him as cows and give milk and like that. And how does Krishna reciprocate? How you deal with the cow. So therefore, how would men interact with women? How who wants to be interacted? How the women want to be interacted with. So is that answer a little different than we started off at the beginning of this? You understand? So, the other one, what that side was thinking was correct. Right? Because that's feminine. Right? Feminine means you interact with them on how they want to be interacted with. Does that make sense? Right? The ability to do that, that's masculine. So if you have a man that has to be dealt with on his terms and his way and everything, is that a masculine mentality or a feminine mentality?
Feminine.
Feminine. How do you get masculine?
His own way.
His own way. But in his own way means without any relationship. Remember we said Atmarama means it's masculine, but there's no interaction with others. You want to go off and just walk or go sit in the park like that, or throw pine cones at the squirrels and stuff like that. Then that's just you being a man and just sitting out there, but you can't interact with a lady in that mentality. It's a different mentality. Therefore Krishna has these two. He's Atmarama, but he is also Rasa Raj. Right? Does that make sense? It's very important you are able to distinguish. Means the ladies know who they are. The problem is not the ladies. The problem is the men knowing who they are. Right? So now we come to this point. This is the point at which anybody who is very attached to their particular concept of masculine behavior and wants to stick to that, this is your opportunity to stand up and walk out the door. You understand? Because if you stay in the room past this point, your idea of what's masculine may be completely turned around 180 degrees. No, not 2 degrees, 180. Right? The first one we just did. When you say, it's my way, it's got to be this, it's got to be that, is that a masculine or a feminine? It's feminine. Right? Because it's my way, but the other person has to be involved. That means I'm dependent upon them for my position. That's feminine. It's dependent. Understand? Independence, the exact opposite. Independent, you're free to not be involved, but you choose to be. And because you're involved, then you interact with the person who is dependent. Because that's the only way they can interact. Does that make sense? That's masculine. So masculine means there are two states. That one means, well, you could, yeah. In other words, we're not taking this, the aspect where one is not functioning with interacting with the women. Okay? We're leaving that because this is not a brahmachari class, right? This is on how to properly interact. So that means there's two states that one is in. Everybody here is educated. You all know what grammar is and stuff, right? You've heard of verbs, right? Okay, and in verbs you have transitive and intransitive, right? You all know what that means? Huh? We lost anybody? Intransitive means the verb is doing nothing. It's only showing existence or state of being. You know, like that. Krishna is swimming. So the swimming Krishna exists. Nothing's happening, right? Nothing's being accomplished by this. He's just existing, right? So that's intransitive. Transitive means that something is getting done, right? Krishna swims from, this side of the Jamuna to that side. Does that make sense? So this is very important, that you can distinguish these two states and be able to use them. That's masculine. So you have to be able to know when I just exist, I make no plan, I make no judgment, I do nothing. But I'm completely aware and tuned in and willing to interact when I see what's the proper way to do it. Right? So it's a state of existence that's potentially active, not a state of existence that is not interactive. Right? This is extremely important. Right? Because all of you have been married for some time, so have you ever experienced that possibly that maybe on some extremely rare occasion, maybe your partner was not satisfied and upset with you? Maybe, yes?
Sorry, didn't hear.
Huh?
Didn't hear.
You didn't hear. I'm seeing a pattern here. Okay. So yes or no? Any of you had trouble with that? Yes?
No.
Okay. And when you try to do something about it, it gets better, right? You try to find a dynamic solution, it may not get better. Right? We're talking from inside, we're not talking from outside. This is not, no one should be giving the politically correct answer. We're talking reality. Okay? So that's because you're being active in a state where you don't actually know what you're supposed to do. That's where this other state that I'm talking about, you just exist, you're not sure what's happening, and so you just wait and see. Right? Does that make sense? Because much of the time, it's either the woman knows what she's upset about, and you haven't figured out the nuances or the subtleties that she's trying to explain it through, so you have to wait until you do. Or she herself doesn't even know why she's upset. It just happens. Right? Does that make sense? You know? You never saw that sticker in the back of cars, grumpiness happens. You know? So it's just, it's not known why it goes on. So, because they don't know, how are you going to know? So therefore you just wait. Okay? But as soon as there's an indication of what should be done, then activity is there. Okay? If you try before that, it will be wrong and you will get in trouble. Okay? Yeah? Okay. There's all kinds of connecting principles here. Right? And so we have to kind of switch from one to the other and then, try to pull it all together, then you can ask questions. Okay, that one then brings us... Okay, so this brings up the point is that, to operate this, then, because one may ask how to operate this. This is based on two principles that a man has to be able to do. Sense control and sensitivity. Right? So that's masculine. To be sense controlled and be sensitive. In other words, you're aware of the situation. So to be in that state, you would have to be sense controlled because you're not doing anything. You're not reacting, you're not yelling, you're not screaming, you're just there. You want to walk out the door, you don't. You just stay right there. Right? Then you have to be sensitive because you have to be aware of what's going on. Right? So you have to see what is there. Women are always sensitive. So the point is, if you want to tune into it, you have to be sensitive. Right? Sensitive means aware. Right? Sensitive doesn't mean that you're crying at anything. It just means that you're aware of what's going on. Okay? Does that make sense? Like that. Another principle, so then going back to what we were talking about before, so we see there's these two masculine states. Right? Now another aspect of that masculine state of the active is this is the meaning of the man leads. Right? Whatever it is you want the woman to do, you have to do it first. Right? This idea, I'm the man, she does it first. No, the idea is if you're leading, you have to do it first. Right? You've had an argument, you think you're right, she's wrong, and so this time I'm not letting it go, this has got to come to an end, and this and that, so you stubbornly sit there. And then she's got to take the first step and come and say, I'm sorry in that. So that means who's leading? She is, not you. So if you want her to see whatever it is she's done wrong and be humble, you have to do it first. You want her to serve, you serve first. You want her to be humble, you be humble first. That's leading. This idea, I just sit there and accept service, and that's masculine, that's wrong. That's nothing. How do you interact with something that just accepts service? Does that make sense? Okay. Then, okay, we're just, what comes to mind, we're pulling out random principles. Another is the situation of what's masculine and feminine, right? We all know philosophy, right? So philosophy is divided into three aspects, sambandha, abhideya, prayojana, right? We've all heard of this? Yes? No? Sambandha means relationship, abhideya means process, prayojana means goal, right? So now, that also then goes, sambandha is sandini potency, eternality principle. Process is chit potency, or sambit potency, which is, we know as, chit. And prayojana is result, that's ananda, or hladini potency. Right? So satchit ananda, so that's what God's made out of, that's what the soul is made out of. That's, therefore, everything we do is based on these three things. Right? Actions complete if all three are there. Okay? So now in this existence, that's what Krishna is. So that's the masculine principle. Right? He expands the feminine principle. Right? And then the masculine and feminine can combine through abhideya. Right? Chit. Chit means activity based on knowledge. So if the man acts just on emotion, it's not going to get anywhere. It has to be properly applied activity that's got the proper understanding. Right? Does that make sense? So that's where they meet. Without that, they don't meet. If the man just exists, there is no relationship with the woman. Does that make sense? Yes? No?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So now, in this, we also, so there's two aspects of this sambandha. You have sankarshan and you have prajumna. Right? Sankarshan means that's the field. That's all the elements of existence. Prajumna means the interest to interact with them. You understand? This is the difference of, it's very important to understand this state that we talked about before, the state of sattva, or just existence. Right? You know, we said the intransitive state. So in Sanskrit it's called sattva. Right? Sattva doesn't mean you just exist, there's no connection with anything. It means you exist with the interest that you want to interact, but what interaction is going to be there is not obvious, so therefore nothing's happening. Does that make sense? So that's the point. But the point is that it's on the edge. You don't know which way to push, but you're there ready to push. Right? Because masculine is active, feminine is passive. Right? The women expect you're going to act. Right? So that means you have to be willing to act. You can't be lazy, because lazy is mode of ignorance. Mode of ignorance means it's just what's the dead elements that are here. Right? So therefore, potato couches are not inspiring to women. Because you have a couch and you have a potato sitting on it. It's a big deal. Right? We also have potatoes in the kitchen. At least, you know, you can cook them, they taste good. You know, do what you want. Right? Does that make sense? Okay. So that's important for understanding the state which to be in. So because from prajumna, then it naturally moves to aniruddha. What is the goal? Once you understand what's there, then you can understand the goal, because the goal is connected to the feminine. Then there can be activity. Right? So unless the connection is there, you don't know what to do, but you're trying to find what is the connection. Right? And the reason they're upset is because somehow or another you've done something that the connection appears to be compromised. You understand? Women don't get upset unless they think the relationship is compromised, because they're dependent. So they have to see a very clear connection. Right? And as soon as there's some doubt there, then immediately it has to be connected again before you can act. You can't go on what connection was there before, you have to go on what's right now. Right? You know, you can say, well, the connection is there, so prove it. You understand? Then it's connected, so then the sambandha is complete. You know what it is, then there can be activity. Does this make sense? Right. Another principle is so based on this, man's pleasure, the male pleasure is there, you have some goal, you do an activity, it gets a result. Right? So the man's pleasure is properly performing the activity how he would like it performed and getting the result that he expects. Right? Okay. Feminine is basically the experience that's gained from the process, not the process itself. And the result, it's not the result, it's the experience of the result. So the whole thing's the experience. Does that make sense? So that's passive. That means process has to be going on for the woman to experience something. Does that make sense? So the pleasure is different. Right? So for the man, because they're in the efficiency, then the quicker you can, get from point A to point B, the better. Right? But for the woman, since it's the experience of the whole thing, It's the opposite. Does that make sense? So that means in an activity you have preliminaries that establish the relationship. Then you have the relationship, the actual activity itself. Then you have a conclusion of that activity. Right? Reading the same Samandabhideya Prayojan from a different perspective. That means you have the activity, that's the Abhideya, but until the preliminaries are there, until everything's in place and everything, like you want to cook, you just don't walk in and start cooking. You know, you have to have ingredients, you have to have pots and pans, you have to have the stoves, you have to have everything, it has to be cut, ground, this, that. Once you've done all that, so the more elaborate the cooking, the more elaborate the preparation. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Then you have the cooking, and then when the cooking's finished, it's just you walk out and it's all done? No, then you have to clean, wash this, take everything, transfer it into nice serving bowls, you know, decorate it, set up for... You understand? Does this make sense? So if it makes sense, then you understand why the man is trying to get something done quickly and the woman is not. Because the woman's pleasure is in the preliminaries and the conclusion and not the activity. Because for her, the activity is the experience of the activity that's nice, not the activity itself. This makes some sense? Right? The girl says, let's do something. Okay. So what? Okay, let's watch a movie. Right? And so the man has come to watch the movie. And so the process is watching the movie, and the result is the movie has been watched. Right? Isn't it? The lady, it's an opportunity to do something together. That's why halfway through, just at the important part, you know, she starts talking. And then she asks you want something to eat. You know, and then she gets up to leave the room. Should I turn it off? And he said, no, no, no. And it's kind of like, well, what happened to watching the movie? No. You understand? Because the movie's not good. And the thing is let us say she says, let's watch a movie. Does it? Then you just, the man go, okay, walk in, sit down, turn it on, and then go. But does that happen with the lady? No. Gets out this, oh, we could get this to eat or that, or I got to call this one or that one, or go take a bath or something else. So it may take 2-3 hours before you watch the movie. You understand? So whatever it is, there's always a preliminary. Right? And then the movie finishes, the guy goes, oh great, puts down the lid and then gets up walking. Huh? What happened? You know? Does that make sense? So that's very important. It's the preliminaries and the conclusion that's important to women. But unless there's an activity means that you're trying to connect those two. You know what I'm saying? Preliminaries and conclusion are connected through an activity. They're based around an activity. So if there's no activity, the women don't get this pleasure. So if the man's not active, a woman cannot be happy. That makes sense? So that's why couch potato marriages generally fail. Or the guy's just doing his own thing. Because then he's just in that existence state where they interact. Right? Does this make sense? Right? The field is set by the man. He, you know, I take care, I provide this. What are you providing? You're providing a field. But what's going to happen in that field at any moment, that's what the woman, that's where the rasa is. That's then where the woman's the center. What is the field, the man is the center of. But what is done in the field, the woman is the center of. You understand? So if you want to interact, they're the center. Right? Does that make sense? I can think of that's all the nature principles. Because if you understand all that, you understand what to do. Does that make sense to all of you? Okay. Anything was left out? Means if the men did what I said, it would be good. Yes? No? Got it? You do that, and anything that you're looking for will automatically come. Right? Shall we test it? Right? Is that correct? If the men behave the way I was talking about, with the things that they're wanting, would that come automatically? Yes or no?
Yes.
They know what you want. It's just that you don't deserve it. You haven't worked for it. You haven't done the right activities to deserve it. Women are very just in this way. Oh, one more thing I must point out. This is, how do you say? Oh well, we'll just see if anybody brings it up. If no one notices, I don't want to say it. Because it's something, it's on the women's stuff. Okay? Is that understood? So they know what you want. They're happy to reciprocate. But you have to behave in a way that they feel like reciprocate because you're leading. Right? In other words, you want them to behave in a certain way, you have to lead that they behave that way. If they're not, that means you're not behaving the right way. Does that make sense? Yeah? That's why in the Shastra it always says he. Because if the men do all those things, the women are automatically going to follow all those things. So you don't have to say she separately. Right? If you don't know philosophy and you're just, a modern socialite, then you don't understand what it's talking about. You don't say, oh, it's unbalanced, uneven. No. If the men are doing it, women automatically do it. Men don't do it, then women will have to work out things on their own. Does that make sense? Okay, so now we'll try any questions, and then from there we'll discuss these points in practical application, and then it might bring up some other things, but otherwise it'll probably move on these points. Questions? Yes?
Could you please give a specific example of a situation
Of?
of what you just explained?
All of them. Which
As
one?
in the husband acts in such a way and then the wife follows.
Means?
As in a situation in which
Okay, just taking what we mentioned before, the one, an argument has happened, right? So generally what happened, let's say, let us just use this side of an argument. The woman has done something wrong, right? So she knows it's wrong, or maybe she just didn't even know. It was just the way she thought it should be done. But the man has pointed out that it's wrong. So how he points out that it's wrong is actually what upsets the woman. Right? As long as there's no one else around. If there's someone else around, then that you pointed it out in front of someone else, like that can create a lot of problems, right? But if it's not, it's just between you and them, okay, it's wrong, as long as you can, it's properly explained, fine, Or if it's a matter of it doesn't really matter if it's wrong or something, it has to. But generally what happens is the tone of voice of the words used by the man, the woman feels are inappropriate. So that's why she gets angry. And then the man's wondering, why is she angry? I should be the one angry because she's the one that's wrong. But she's wrong in the proper, how you say, what do you call it? She's wrong, let's say, in the efficient performance of a particular activity to get a specific result. Right? Isn't it? But he's wrong because the relationship and how he dealt was inappropriate. It didn't match the mood and situation the girl was in. Right? So now both are angry. Right? So then, the man, now he's thinking, she's wrong, I'm not backing down on this. I've done this so many times, and she just, I always have to come and apologize, and why is it, she can't apologize? But the point is that he wants her to be humble and apologize. He's got to do it first. He's got to lead. Does that make sense? So, if that's so, then it works. Right? And that combines, the point is that when it happens, the first thing is he's been active, and then he's found it didn't work, so then he has to become, become, how you say, just, yeah, nowadays they'll say centered, or this or that, but he just is, he goes in that state of sattva, just existing, and then he's trying to figure out actually what went wrong. Then he either asks, or this or that, or if he asks and he gets no answer. It's not the woman doesn't want to give the answer, it's just emotionally too disturbing. So she hasn't answered, or it's obvious you should figure it out. And if not, you sit there long enough in that state, and then she'll respond and let you know what it is. Right? Now, one thing, okay, does that make some sense? So, being in that state, then he figures out what's wrong. Then he says, oh, I'm sorry, this, that, whatever, blah. Then she'll say, okay, yeah, I was wrong here or there. It's not that the women don't know. When they do something wrong, the women always know. Because they're sensitive, so they're always knowing what's going on. Just the ego is such that it can't be dealt with roughly. Right? In other words, you're doing, oh, that's wrong. Means that's wrong, but what's your relationship with them? Why are you saying like that? Point is that's wrong because it will do some problem for them, rather than just it's the wrong way of doing it. So what's more important, the right or wrong way of doing it, or them? You understand? Because if the woman doesn't feel that she's, except for Krishna and Guru, that she's after that, means, is not the most important thing to you on the material platform, then there's a problem. Because then the connection doesn't feel solid. Because something else could take you away. Okay, Guru and Krishna, that's another thing. That's in a different realm. But on the material platform, they have to be the most important. So that means your career, your friends, your hobbies, your own emotions can't be more important than them. Otherwise, how are they going to feel, how do you say? Properly connected, secure. Right? Right? They won't feel safe. This is protection of women. When a woman feels secure, that's called protection. We said something wrong? Okay.
Not of how that wrong has to be expressed in a way that the connectivity remains proper.
It depends on the individual woman. That you have to figure out yourself. In other words, these are the principles, but you have to figure it out what is there. Main thing is ask. But they're only going to tell you once. Because if they have to tell you a second time, it's not after a long time, then they're going to think you're stupid. You know what I'm saying? In other words, ladies will always, they mean this, they'll say that. So if they mean this, they say this, listen. They don't do it often, but when they do, they expect you to take it very seriously. You know what I'm saying? And there's no talk about past, no talk about this, it's talk about now. Right? The other point is if you want to interact, as we mentioned before, that brings up another aspect of that principle, of the sambandham prayojana, sambandham being masculine, prayojana being feminine. Now when we reflect those in the material world, then the eternality principle becomes the mode of ignorance, right? Because there it's eternal, here ignorance is the basis of everything, right? Then sandhini, that becomes passion, and hladini, that becomes goodness. So the feminine principle is happening, what's happening right now. Because that's where experience is. Experience isn't in the future or past, it's in the present. So even if you want to talk about something in the future, you have to bring that to present, to experience. By the past, you have to bring it to present to experience it. You know what I'm saying? So just like, a man tells a story about the past, he gets into facts and figures and this and that, but it doesn't create the experience. So women, if you talk about the past, you have to tell it in such a way that generates the experience that was there in the present. That's a story the ladies like. Otherwise the men sit around telling the stories, the women aren't interested at all. Men think, oh, they don't understand what we're talking about. They understand, but it's like, it has no taste. A piece of cardboard or something. It's like no flavor. You understand? So it must be dealt with in the present, right? That is so. So if a woman does go, this is what's going on, deal with it right now. Don't go, but in the past you said this. None of that. You want to start a bigger fight, do that. Because the point is it's not very often they'll come out and be right up front. So that when they are, take it seriously because they mean it. If they've done all kinds of crazy and insane things, right? And they've come to understand this is wrong, and they say, I'm sorry, you take it. You know what I'm saying? Because just for them to say that, that's big. Does that make sense? Like that. So their point is, if they said they're sorry, you have to accept it. Right? Because sorry means they want to see everything goes on, and they're just like clearing it. So now relationship is there, because but as soon as you say, well, what about, that means then the connection's not there. They say you're sorry, and it's accepted, then connection is there. But if you bring up other things, it means connection's not there. And then one might say, but for dealing with the men, it's opposite, seemingly. Because if the man says he's sorry, he has to get down and grovel and roll on the ground and prove it. Because they want to make sure that relationship is there. Does that make sense? The whole thing is on relationship, the connection. So a woman's done something wrong, she says, I'm sorry. It's just to be accepted and move on. Like that. You can't hold the past into that. Yes? Because they won't do it often. If they say, well, actually, I don't like this, or I do like this in this situation, or I was just being a girl and this happens, then then you have to go, don't take it, oh yeah, well, every time she'll tell me. No, that's your reference point. And that's the way it works. Right? In other words, activities based on knowledge, so when knowledge does come, take it and use it in your activity. Right? That makes sense? Okay. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. I was just contemplating on the question that you saw. Now, you said being masculine means sense control.
Sense control and sensitivity.
And sensitivity.
Simultaneous. Means if you want just sense control without sensitivity, then you have to be celibate.
Yeah, on the other side.
But if you want to deal with women, you have to be able to do both at once. Of course, you're sensitive to the spiritual. That's another thing that we're not here. That's not the discussion.
In grihasta ashram, it does happen. Something goes wrong. Men lose the sense control, happen to shout, and it all goes on as you have described technically.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to understand how to stop it, being sensitive at the same time.
How to stop it means,
How do we
it
stop
means anger comes after frustration.
Hmm.
Frustration means there's something you're trying to get done that you can't get done. That means you're still being active. So if you stop being active and go into just the existence state, then there's nothing to be frustrated about. But that existence state is not that I'm forcing myself from my active state into this, so the attention is going back into yourself. That may be there for a moment until you've practiced it. But once it's practiced, it just comes back to this state. Then it's like, okay, what is it that the woman wants? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
That will work. Try anything else, it will not work. You know what I'm saying? Because you've performed an activity, you went wrong, that means you missed the point. That's why they say you don't understand. Because you don't understand what's the experience is being gained from the activity, because that's what's important to them. Not that the activity is done, textbook perfect. That doesn't matter. Right? That's not what they're looking at. So that's what they mean when you don't understand. It's not an intellectual statement. It's not saying that you don't have enough intelligence to figure out what I'm talking about. What they're saying is you don't understand what experience I'm talking about or what I am experiencing. That's what they mean by you don't understand. So therefore you stop and then try to see what it is. If the door is open for conversation, ask. If the door is shut, just sit there. Exist. But it's an active existence. It means that active means it's a potential active existence. It's not just okay, I'm here. It means it's Prajuna, not Shankarshan.
Stand by.
Yeah, stand by.
Isn't there a danger there of becoming indifferent in that state?
That's why I said it has to be active. You want it to work. Means you don't have any alternative but to go into this state because activity is not working. You know what I'm saying? You're doing something, it's not working, so that means what you're doing is wrong. So you have to stop and then think about what to do. But how do you decide what to do? From yourself or from the thing that you're trying to work with? Right? You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to bang a nail into something and the nail keeps bending. So I can't just go, well, the nail's got to go in there. I'm the man, I got the hammer, and I'm in charge here. It doesn't work. You have to see what's wrong, what's going on. Then you figure out that I'm putting a 2-inch nail into a 1-inch board, and so therefore it's bending. I'm saying then you have to look at it and figure out what is going on. So that means you have to stop. But you're active. You want to, mentally you're active in the way of you're trying to figure things out. All right? You're intellectually active, and as soon as you understand, you're willing to move forward. What I'm saying is that something's gone wrong, so therefore you bring the energy back to just being there, but you just keep it going into yourself. You make yourself the center. Then that'll be a problem. Right? Because then you have two females there. But when you just bring it back and then are trying to figure out how to go out. Right? That's masculine. That'll work. Any of the ladies here think it won't work? You sure? What's your doubt?
Don't complain.
No, I'm just saying, any of the ladies here think that if the man did like that, would it work out? However quickly that the disturbed relationship could be worked out, it would be worked out in the quickest way possible. Yes or no? Are you saying this because everybody else is?
It's true.
It's true.
Yeah, you are saying no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just a minute. So you're just a little shy. Does that make sense? Do you understand? This is a new concept to you. This is what these guys have been waiting for. When they talk about the guy on the white horse riding along, this is what they're talking about. So they're all waiting for it. They're just, expecting that you'll figure out, what white horses and shining armor and all that stuff is, right? I'm not sure if the shine includes gem, but shining. Okay? Yes. So do you understand that point? Okay. You have something?
Yes, Marge, I was going to ask, does that mean that if women are not acting properly, then the responsibility is actually with the man? Or?
The woman herself has a responsibility to try to be chaste and satisfied. That's her endeavor. So she should be trying to make that. Those are the complementary qualities. The other, he's going to be sense control because she's chaste. Or because she's chaste, he's sense control. Like that, they go together. And he's sensitive, so that means he's doing the best he can. So whatever the best he can do, the woman is satisfied with that. So if she's not satisfied, or not, like that, then very hard. Right? But a lot of times the dissatisfaction comes that he's not sensitive or trying. But if he is, then that's generally, it's just like, okay, the kid goes to school, right? And they bring home this picture, right? You take a brown crayon and you kind of go like that, and that's a mountain. Then you stick a couple of trees off like this and a house off also at that 45-degree angle, right? And you draw a window on it and a little chimney and then a little black smoke. right? Then there's a big sun, few rays in yellow with a big smile on it, like that. Then you have, you know, some other color. You draw a little, you know, thing like that. That's the birds, like that, right? Everybody draws one. There's a good chance your mother still has that in her drawer, right? So this is definitely like a, you know, great work of art of the masters, right? You know, a Picasso or, you know, right? No, it's because of the mood. Right? Does that make sense? It's the sincerity that counts. It's the mood that counts for the women, not the effectiveness. Right? But if you say, oh, the effectiveness doesn't matter, what's your trip? That means you weren't sincere. Otherwise, you'd be trying harder. If you ever think, you know, what's the trip and all that, means you're not doing it hard enough. Does that make sense? Is that okay? So the women are always trying to be focused and be satisfied. If they're trying that, then the men doing all these other things, it'll work. So women do have the responsibility, where it's a mixed crowd, so we're only talking more of this side, which is the major thing anyway. If you want to talk that one, unless you guys are willing, then, you know, it's better to do it when they're closed. You know what I'm saying? It means the formulas can be let out, but, you know, the secrets, that's another thing. You had something?
That means that the man, he has to be quite detached, right? To some extent.
That's very smart. That's very smart. How do you think Krishna's talking in the Gita? Perform your duties with detachment and knowledge.
But you have to be attached, like slightly. That's why you got married, right?
Yeah. Why you're doing it is because attachment, but how you have to behave is detached. Right? You understand? You go into the kitchen to cook lunch because you're hungry, not because Krishna's hungry. But your cooking is done in the mood that this is for Krishna, not for me. So you're attached to being with a woman, interacting with a woman, having the support of the woman, like that. But the way you're going to do it is by not having your own idea how it's going to work out. When you walk in the door at night, don't have your preconceived plan how the evening's going to go, or you will be frustrated. You walk in the door seeing what mood the woman's in and where's it going to go. It's a good trick, huh? That's brahmachari, you know, you just get married and hey, you know, it's all. No. This is where you really learn to become a brahmachari. If you learned it perfectly as a brahmachari, you wouldn't need to get married. So therefore you become a grihasta to learn how to become a brahmachari. Right? And if you thought the temple commander was a tough teacher, try the women. Right? The temple commander expects you're going to do what he says. The women demand it. Understand? Otherwise, it's just no discussion.
He's a temple commander, Raj.
Something similar. Something similar. Understand? So the difference is that Upakurvana perfectly knows all this. I mean, Naistika knows all this and sees there's no need for it. Why do you think the women respect real brahmacharis? Right? Do the women here have any problem respecting real brahmacharis? Not at all. They really respect them. Because they're doing something the women know they can never do. Be detached. But the so-called brahmacharis, the women have zero respect for. Is that right? Because they're cheating. Cheating means they're taking one position and expecting they're going to get something else. It's not practical. It doesn't work. You know what I'm saying? Like let's say, you know, a 3-year-old kid. There's a bunch of ladies. They're getting ready for a program, And there are various stages of dressed or even undressed. And a 3-year-old boy walks into the room. Do the women shriek and everything? Not at all. Why? Because he has nothing to gain. And how will he deal with them? Just normally. So they're dressed, undressed, half-dressed, naked, they don't care. He'll just deal with them. That's a brahmachari. Right? The brahmachari can go down and serve prasad to the women and serve them just as nicely as he serves the men. Because he has nothing to gain from the women, so therefore he has nothing to get frustrated or angry or freaky about. And the one that can't serve the women or serves them roughly, the women know this guy's not a brahmachari. Why is he even in saffron? You put on white. You know what I'm saying? Like that. Because if you want to know who's a good brahmachari, ask the women. They can tell you exactly who they are. There's not, there'll be different opinions, it'll be the same thing. Right? So, the difference is that Upakurvana, brahmachari, knows what is proper, but he hasn't realized it, like the Naistika. So therefore, then he gets married, and in the ashram, then he can practically see the application of what he knew. So that's with knowledge he goes in, knowing all this about women. He's the one that can actually deal properly. He's the one that they'll reciprocate properly with. Right? Because the male part is intelligence, female is mind. Right? So unless he's intelligent, right, at the same time is able to relate to the mind, then why will they consider him anything special? Right? Intelligence means it's active. Right? Intelligence is stemming from passion, means it's always active. It means intelligent today, it's also intelligent tomorrow, it's also intelligent the next day. So moment to moment you're trying to figure out what's going on and how to make it better. Mode of passion means always increasing, better, profit. So how you deal with the women, if it's going good today, you'll figure out how to make it better tomorrow, because it always changes. It means not changes, it develops.
Raj, Krishna, masculine, is always reciprocating according to what is the expectation of feminine. Now, would that mean that masculine has no expectations at all? Or he gets happiness out of the fulfilling of the expectation of the feminine?
The man gets fulfillment out of that, but the point is Krishna wants to interact with his energies. So when the feminine is interacting with the masculine, that's where the pleasure is. Where the happiness is, the satisfaction is. Right? Does that make sense? So that's what it is. Not that I'm going to do this, I'm going to go home today and she's going to do this and she'll say this and I'll do that. And a woman will never respond the same twice in any given situation. Right? That's the way they're designed. Right? Krishna is unlimited. He means his qualities are unlimited and he's eternal. Right? So that means if he's going to reciprocate with his energy, that means the experiences must be unlimited. Because once it's done once, it's eternally there. Right? Any activity done, the experience from that's eternal. So it's no need to do it again. So there's a slight adjustment. That's why it says Radharani is the only one who can fully satisfy Krishna. Because he has unlimited aspects of the personality. She has the same complementary, reciprocatory aspects of her. So that means as he is unlimited, she can unlimitedly apply. Right? So that's why women never react the same twice. Because that's the way they're designed. So the problem is actually not the women. You understand? Because they're just doing what they do. Right? The problem is the men understanding what masculine is and how to deal with it. Right?
Can this masculine principle be applied to other relationships?
Can be applied to
friends
anything. Anything. In Grammy has subject-object, so subject is masculine, object is feminine. You know, you and your car, okay? That means, in other words, the part that's doing the action, that's the masculine. The part that's how you say, receiving that That's the feminine. So whatever it is, it works like that. So then you go to your car. So now you have to deal with the car as the car is, not how you want. You can't say, my car, I'm going to get in through the trunk. Here. When you get in the boot, then it's going to drive because I said so. My car. It's going to work. No, you got to get in the door. You got to get in the door on the side where the steering wheel is and all those kind of pedals and all that. Right? And then the key. Where do you put the key? Anywhere you like. Put it on the dashboard. Put it in your pocket. I left it in the house. What's the big deal? Start. You know what I'm saying? That's the point. We laugh, but there are probably billions of men all over the planet today that exactly do this, and they can't understand why. You go there, that has to go in the right way. You have to run it through the gears the way it does. You have to deal with everything perfectly the way the car can be dealt with. You have a choice what you want to deal with when, if you want to drive left or right and this and that. But it'll only go left or right how is it able to go left or right. You understand? You want the woman to go that way, then it's got to go that way how they're willing to go. That means at the moment. Right? I'm sitting on the street and the car is stopped. I want to turn left. Right? I can turn the wheel there and then start within 10, 12 feet I can turn left. Let us say you're going 90 miles an hour. Then how many feet will it take? 10 feet? No, it may take hundreds and hundreds of feet. That's the point. You want to go left, it will go left. The women, they don't mind. You want to go left, they're happy to go left. But as they go to speed, they're willing to turn left. Right? That's what I'm saying. You want to watch a movie. Okay, it may happen in 5 minutes, it may happen in 5 hours. Point is you got around to the movie. Right? Because the point is everything you deal with is preliminaries, activity, and the conclusion. You want to drive, you have to walk out to the car, you have to get in the car, you have to turn the car, warm up the car, back out of the drive, you have to do so many things. Then you're on the road, then you can drive. And when you finish driving, you don't just stop, you have to stop the car, park the car, get out, do all the things in reverse, and then it's done. Everything, these principles, why it's explained here is this principles for dealing with anything. But if you talk about something else, no one listens. You talk about man-woman relationship, point. Everything. You know what I'm saying? Guaranteed. You know what I'm saying? And we're talking the light stuff. Right? Like that. We talk the heavy stuff, then the focus is even more intense. So that's the whole point, is that wherever it'll work, that's where it's spoken about. Right? It means like we could talk about taking care of guests, with brahmacharis. But, facilities are not much, this not much, so therefore you talk about with grihastas, they got facilities, they got this, that. Therefore, but all of the ashrams receive guests in the same way. But when you talk about guests, you only talk about in relationship to the grihasta. Or like when you talk about austerity, you talk about it in relationship to the vanaprastha ashram. But everybody else is austere, but they're like that's their focus, or the the renunciation and detachment, the sannyasa ashram. But it's not that everybody else isn't doing the same thing, because that's where it can be done in its fullest form. That makes sense. So all these points that we're making here, if you're really intelligent, anything you deal with goes like that. You understand? I want to drink a glass of water. I have to identify glass, water, hand. There has to be an interest in it. Otherwise, there's a glass of water there. That's just existing. There's no relationship. But yeah, that would be good. I'm thirsty. That would be good. Then you make the endeavor. I can grab it any way I want. No, I have to grab it in a certain way. I have to pour it in a certain way. I want it in my mouth. It's got to go there, not on top of my head. I can say, I'll pour it on my hair, go good. Like that, or could, but it's not going to work. But even if you want to do that, it's still according to, if you put your head back, they're going to go that way, not here. Hey, I'm going to come to lean your head forward, then you pour it off. I'm saying, in other words, the nature of something, if you deal with it in that way, it will work. You don't deal in that way, it'll never work. So masculine is understanding that, being able to deal with that. Feminine is not being able to deal with that. What they want it yesterday. Right? So masculine is understanding what it is and dealing with it as what it is now. Then it works. You know? Okay.
And if you could explain the science of like when the man leaves the body and get the woman's body, and we are carrying intelligence.
It means you're gonna tell this to your wife and say that you're so attached. I'm gonna come back to you. I try another technique. I don't think
No, how this thing works? Like in past life, I was.
Well, okay, but the point is that if at the time of death, whatever you think of, that's what you become. So at the time of death, you think your wife's going to save you, then you become a woman. It's all simple. Because that's where you took shelter. You think of Krishna, you go back to God.
And my question is that the mind and intelligence, they are same. Then how this change in the attitude, like feminine attitude, comes in?
Because gross comes from subtle. So if you think of a woman, means then that's the mentality. So then the gross body collects around that. So you're thinking of a woman, so therefore the feminine attributes then collect around the mind. And then you have a feminine body. Understand? It's like a magnet, it just draws whatever's there. So whatever's the mentality, you draw that kind of nose, mouth, this, that, and everything, and then it's a feminine body. Is that okay? Yes.
Raj, from a practical point of view, your explanations of everything, from an observation, you could say most male people act on a very feminine sort of point of view, and as devotees, you probably do it more than anyone else, because...
No, you do the same as you would otherwise.
But from a Vaishnava point of view, from being a Krishna conscious individual, how can you sort of influence your Krishna conscious friends to start thinking, trying to be more sensitive without looking sort of weak as a man?
Just do it yourself, and if they don't like it, then let them be the man. And watch their women turn them out the door. The point is whatever you can do for yourself, that you can help others do. So if you're doing it, then after a while you see you have a nice relationship with your wife. Let them complain and this and that. It says the point is it means you want to be rough and tough, that's for the boys. But you want to deal with a woman, that's a different thing. Right? One of the reasons women aren't interested in men or have problem with a particular man is because he takes his advice on dealing with the women and how they deal with theirs. Like that. That's number one no-no, because every woman is individual. What works for one man with his wife does not work for another man with his wife. Because each woman is unique. It's the same principle, but how it's put together is different. Like you go in a basket of potatoes, right? They're all potatoes, but you look at each one and they're uniquely different potato. Right? You know what I'm saying? So for one, you could say basically, okay, you can peel them and this and that, you can boil them, you can make this and that. But if you decide, says, yeah, you take the potato and then you cut it up and you get these nice, you get, so many chips out of it, and then you go out and pick up a potato this big, you're not going to get that many chips out of it. And then you wonder what happened. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the first thing is you do it, then you can convince them. And if they're not, don't bother. Find some other friends. Basically, it's like this. If you're doing what I'm talking about, then you may not find you need to go and find some relief by hanging out with those kind of friends, because you'll have a nice relationship at home. You understand? Like that. Okay.
Right, many of us are married and we're still living with our parents, so that adds a whole new dynamic to the relationship.
Okay, so basically, just before you get anywhere, is who's more important to you? You've gotten married here. Now, women have to think that they're the main one. So now, whether you're really supporting your mother or not, you're still a son, right? It's not a voluntary position. But a woman's become your wife, purely voluntary. So when it comes between your wife and your mother, if you don't take your wife, then you are still going to be living with your mother, but possibly without your wife. You understand? As I said, if the conjugal relationship, if she's not the most important thing, a relationship to you of anything, it's not going to work. You know what I'm saying? And some mothers, means for the girl it's mother-in-law, for you it's a mother. They understand and they're very careful and are kind and take care of the girls. And some of them don't. They want to push the point. They want to push that my relationship with my son is more important than you. And those women, those mothers that do that, the son's got to show them that no, my wife's the more important. I respect you, this and that, but when it comes down to you bothering my wife, that's not going to fly here. If I'm important, that means my wife's important. If you care for me, you care for my wife. Probably said, love me, love my dog. You deal nice with me, you treat my wife like crap, then we're moving out. And then you'll see a really nice mother-in-law. The point is the mother, she'll just push it as far as she can. Because you're hers, and that she wants to make sure it's exclusive. But when you understand it is exclusive as a mother, but conjugal rasa is deeper than that. And so that's got to take precedent of the two.
In relation to that, is it
Otherwise you're going to be stuck in between two angry women. You got a problem. So you either have to decide, am I going to get this together and support my wife and somehow convince my mother, or am I going to take sannyas? Because that's basically so it's a little early. So it's a little early for sannyas, and then you got to convince your mother that you're not going to deal with my daughter this way, and that's it. They understand it. They're a woman. They would not allow their husband to allow his mother to deal with them like that. So why would they do this way? As soon as you make it clear this is the way it is, we're happy to be here, this is the tradition, we're here, but as long as you behave, you don't behave. And behave means, according to tradition, not according to your will, or according to your wife's will, just a matter of, properly, nice dealings. Like that. She has a husband. If she has a bad day, mother-in-law takes it out on her husband, not on your wife. Right? Your wife has a bad day, she takes it out on you. That's how it is. You understand?
Makes sense. You said about culture. In the ideal situation, should everyone be living in one family?
If it works, it can be, it cannot be. It means if means you're talking about everybody, mean brothers or just one person?
Mother, father, and eldest son and his wife.
If it's working, if it's Krishna conscious, or at least it's cultured, then it's nice because there's support, especially if there's children. To try to take care of them alone is very difficult. Some days, there's so many reasons. Then it's nice if it's like that. If it works. If it doesn't work, then better to be alone. The Vedas don't disapprove of living separate from the family. Right? The nuclear family, if it's for spiritual purposes, is allowed. It's even supported. Because if you live in the family, you do one, special program amongst all of you. Right? But if you're separate from the family, they'll do a special program, you'll do a special program. So more service actually is rendered. Understand? So if on spiritual purposes one separates, it's not considered bad. But on material, then it's not considered. Then you should cooperate and work together. You know what I'm saying? So that's why Prabhupada didn't mind if people left their families, moved out, did this and that, because it was spiritual. If it's material consideration, then that's not good. Does that make sense? But it's more ideal to be able to more is there, the more happening, the more it is easy. Like that. But that's if it works. If everybody's Krishna conscious, they can cooperate together, and that's nice.
I'm just thinking in my particular situation, my parents are Krishna conscious, or aspiring very hard to become Krishna conscious. So, and yet the dynamic seems to put a major strain.
So sit down and talk with your mother and father and ask them what's going on. Why is your wife unhappy? If they say it's all her fault, then tell them, well, I'm married to her, so either you got to figure out how to make it work, or we're leaving. That's your choice, one or the other. The choice is not there that you and your wife will live in the house and they'll go on harassing her however they like. Tell them that's not an option. It's either you behave, or tell us what's going wrong that she's doing wrong, and we'll work on it. It's either going to get better, or we're going to move out. And if that's there, then you'll see mothers-in-law get it together real fast. Or if their ego's too big, you move out, and then they just sit there and they're all alone. It's their choice. Like that. And you say it's your obligation, but you have an obligation to the wife also. Right? You took 7 steps together, that means you're friends. You can't let your friend be dealt with. Now, you tell your mother, okay, according to the rules, if somebody outside, if one person deals with you badly, meaning the mother, you expect all of us to also avoid that person, right? Isn't it? So then why is it that if you're dealing with my wife, I shouldn't also exclude you from my activities, just as she feels like? It's the same principle. It doesn't, cut one way when you like, and then the other way it doesn't cut. Right? The knife will only cut the potato, it'll never cut my finger. No, it'll cut both. So that principle works for her, it also works for your wife. So therefore, if you're going to deal badly with my wife, then, our relationship stays the same. But it'll just have to be appreciated from a distance. Right? I mean, that's just the way it is. Otherwise, then why bother? Right? The Vedic thing is it's supposed to be more efficient, more nice, more this. So if it's worse, then it's not Vedic. You know what I'm saying? Vedic works. So if it's not Vedic, it means the Vedic principles aren't being followed. Does that make sense? And if there's something your wife's doing, then try to get her to understand and behave and this and that. If you see the mother's doing everything perfectly and she's freaking out, then that's another thing. But then you got to figure out what's causing her to freak out. Why is she behaving the way she's behaving? Because you have to know one thing. Mothers will deal with you very nicely, and in front of the girl, they'll still deal very nicely with the girl. But as soon as you walk out the door, like that, how they behave, you won't even believe. You understand? Like that. So you have to be open to that might be what's going on. Right? So your wife may be tripping, she might not be tripping. But you have to get in there and figure out what it is. Right? Because if you're married and then the thing, you're the one that calls the shots. You know what I'm saying? When the son gets married, and especially if you got a kid, and your father has gray hairs on the side, the skin's getting wrinkled, and that means he's a vanaprastha. It means you're the head of the house, not him. I don't know if they're going to buy that one, but that's Vedic. You know what I'm saying? If he wants to say it's my house, then great, it's your house. I'll go get my own. Understand? So this is not a license for attitude. This is the point of how to make it work. And it has to be real. People can't just be stupid and trippy however they like. You know what I'm saying? So you have to be able to intelligently figure out who's wrong here and deal with it. That's the meaning of being you know, a married person, a man. You know, so you have to take responsibility. You know, and whatever it is, go with it, take responsibility, make it work. Okay?
What about if the man's priority is his family, as being like the head of the family in terms of the eldest son? How
Means
to...
the priority is being the head of the family.
Well,
so is the wife part of the family or not?
Yeah, but they're seeing it in terms of they're the eldest son, so they have certain obligations and certain...
They have obligations and all that, but the obligations are there as long as the reciprocation is there. A teacher teaches a student, has the obligation to teach, as long as the student responds as a proper student. Or a student has obligations to learn from the teacher if the teacher is behaving properly. You know what I'm saying? So obligation does go with proper behavior. You know what I'm saying? This thing, if it's just a one-sided thing, that doesn't work. That's the problem. So obligations, they're obligated as long as it works. But if the son is trying to do that because of his obligation to the family, but they won't deal with his wife properly, then what's his obligation? Why is he obligated to the family? On what grounds? You know what I'm saying? You know, say, oh, we spent so much time, we spent so much money, we brought you up. He says, yeah, when you get old and wrinkly, then we'll take care of you too. Because by that time, you won't be making any noise. So then my wife will... You know what I'm saying? So you took care of me 20 years of my life, we'll take care of the last 20 years of yours. You know, but now it's, you know, it's different. So there's this reality. The point is, this obligation is there, but the obligation must mean something. There must be a reality behind it. That's why it's there. The sages established these traditions because they had meaning. But the meaning has to work. You know what I'm saying? If you went to a school and you had a teacher there and you weren't learning anything, then how can you say, well, I'm obliged because they're my teacher? You know what I'm saying? The eldest son is supposed to do, but then the rest of the family has to respond. So then it's a matter of, okay, if you want me to be dutiful and take care of everything, then I'm taking care of everything, then therefore you do what I say. You know, you're the senior, we respect you, we'll take care of you, but I call the shots. You could take it that way also. But if, you know, the other family members are still very active and, you know, like this and that, making their own way and doing their own stuff, then great. If you fit in, great. If not, then you'll fit in later when they actually need you. Because now they don't need you. They're active. They're taking care of themselves. They're making money. They're doing things. They can still, you know, screw in a light bulb and all those kind of things like that. And when they can't do that, that's when you can say my obligation as the eldest son kicks in and now we'll take care of them. You know what I'm saying? So if they're taking care of themselves, makes it unbearable for the couple, the son and his wife to live, there's no need to be together because there's nothing that you can offer them that they actually need. Right? Their point is they took care of you when you couldn't take care of yourself. You'll take care of them when they can't take care of themselves. Since they're taking care of themselves, the obligation actually is not now. If it works, hey, it doesn't mind. We've always been here, it's growing up, it's comfortable, we'll keep going. Like Vanaprastha, husband and wife have a good relationship, the companionship is very strong, there's no need for them to separate. Right? There's no need to separate or like that. Because both work so well together, they can be fully Krishna conscious, fully engaged in activity all day, but you know, they know how to support each other and it works fine. But if they have a bad relationship, then when it comes to that time, it's natural better they separate because they won't support each other in full-time devotional service. You know, so it's just what it's Vedic means what is the reality of what's going on, and then picking that, choosing that option to accomplish the principle that the Vedas talk about. That's the one that's to be chosen. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Like that. You know, but all this has to be done nicely. But the point is, you know, without, but it has to be, but it's reality. It's reality. You know.
What if the husband's more supportive of the relatives' views and opinions of him being the eldest and everything and having the obligations and not being able to...
As opposed to the wife.
Yeah.
And the wife doesn't feel supported.
Yeah.
Then he's a fool. You know, because the point is why isn't it working? If their opinions are so good, why aren't they working? You know? And if it's said, well, you know, the girl's not trained, then, well, what is the process of training? Well, it's no training, it's just expectation. And if it's a matter of the girls like this, she was like this before also, so why did he choose her? So since he's chosen her, then that's where his obligation lies. Yeah. Yes?
Is there not, just an extension of that, a danger that, you know, to consider the man a fool in that situation where he's trying hard to, you know, if in the event the parents aren't, that they're very inclined to Krishna consciousness, they're going to be practicing, that you want to set a nice impression of what you're practicing as a Krishna conscious person, so you're trying to deal with them nicely also.
Dealing nicely does not mean not dealing straight. You can deal very nice and be straightforward. But what I'm saying is dealing nice may mean, considering living in the house, dealing nice may mean, you know, very nicely making arrangements to live somewhere else. You know what I'm saying?
Because I suspect...
Point is one should always be behaving as a gentleman, but one has to take responsibility. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? So you deal nicely with your parents, but you haven't taken the responsibility to protect your mother until your father's gone. But you've taken the responsibility to protect your wife. And as we described before, unless the environment is there and the security is there, the woman is not protected. She may be in a house locked up and no one touches her, but she's still not protected. Protected means she has a dynamic relationship, connection with her husband, or with the father, or with the son, whoever is designated, or any combination that's there.
So this idea of, especially I suppose in a man's position, he's kind of trying playing this sort of balancing act in a sense.
He tries a balancing act, but the point is there's still priorities in the balancing act. It means you never lose your relationship with your mother, right? But you can lose it with your wife. Like I said, that's voluntary. The other one's, you know, biological. You know, I mean, there are some families that will just, you're not my son, and just cut off. But even that, you know, eventually at some point they got to break down, especially grandchildren. It's really tough on grandmothers to be, you know, hold it, not my grandchild, maybe not my son, but my grandson, yes. You know, so these things are there. What's it? Kavi Alvi, you know what I'm saying? They do break down at one point.
I suppose in my mind that it's kind of a danger of becoming dancing dog to both sides, you know.
No, but the point is means you're the son of your parents, you're the dancing dog of your wife. You know, you got to get it right. But a dog is why? They're appreciated because they're loyal. Point is like this. Dancing dog means you have no choice. But there is a choice. You can be the dancing dog or not. The woman has to be a woman. She has to be attached. She has to be connected. She has no other choice. The man can be or not. That you decide to be connected, that's your choice as a man. Of course, that translates into being a dancing dog. But it's your choice as a man that you've taken there. You know what I'm saying? You just have to take responsibility for your decision. You're going to make it work? Make it work. It's that simple. You know what I'm saying? And the women will respond that quickly. Because that's what they want. You understand? You just have to sit down and discuss it. And if it's not working together as a family, discuss individually. Manu mentions that a king, when he's making a decision, first he discusses with each minister individually. Then knowing what each thinks, then he decides how to bring all that together. He doesn't, there's a problem, go down, call a family meeting and that. No one will say anything. Or what they'll say won't be pleasing. You have to talk each one individually, then you start pairing off like that, and then slowly get it until you've got everybody on the same page. That's not a dancing dog. That's intelligent. because you're dealing with individuals and how they're going to relate to the others. So if there's a possibility it can work, you find it. If there's a possibility it can't work, you leave it and try later. If it doesn't work now, you try later. This idea it doesn't work now, eternally it won't work, no. You know what I'm saying? The boy touches the girl, she, brushes him off. That doesn't mean she can't touch her later. It just means right now we don't want to be touched at that point. What it was before was fine. They're moving ahead too fast. You understand?
These principles that that we've discussed, are they sort of to be applied because there's this? You still feel that we are basing our dynamics on the material principles still, and that this is to elevate us, or these are spiritual.
These are reflected spiritual principles that are spontaneously followed there. That here come as rules and regulations. You follow the rules and you don't follow the rules and the regulations, it's hell. You follow the rules and regulations, it's nice. You follow the rules and regulations without a desire for the results of following those rules and regulations, then it gets you out of the material world. So you have three options. Of course you have the fourth, don't even bother. But, I don't think that's an option here. You know what I'm saying? So you can either not follow it and it's hellish. You can follow it and it's great, but you're just entangled. Or you can follow it exactly as the person who follows it perfectly and would be entangled, but without a desire for result. Naishkarmya. You go back to Godhead if you're a devotee. Like that? It frees you from... Naishkarmya liberates you. That means by following the proper way to deal with the wife, how much self-control is there, and everything that you have to do and the sensitivity is there. If you can apply that in your Krishna conscious, you'll be very advanced. Because you won't do it there, you will do it with a woman because you're attached, but at least you've got the skill down. Then, by practice, you can put that into Krishna consciousness. But this is not a very well-known, or probably even a well-supported platform, even though everybody will talk all day on Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna was a grihasta fighting a fratricidal war. How much more mundane is that? But because he was doing it for Krishna, we don't look at the mundane. Right? So therefore people, if anything, will create a nice family environment, romantic environment, cuddly environment, then, oh, that's Maya. But the point is that's supposed to be created. That's why much of those who are more Krishna conscious families are having problems. Right? Because it's too dry for the women to survive in.
The more Krishna conscious.
I'm saying the ones that are, more just, doing the sadhana and this and that, but interacting with each other as Maya. Like that. Is that thing on or not?
Yeah, just putting a cassette in.
Oh, I thought you were trying some new technique. Getting artistic. Does that make sense? So the point is if it's done according to the rules but without desire for the result, then it liberates you, not binds you. It's a dangerous way to work out for liberation, but it's chosen because the desires are there. You know what I'm saying? If the desires are not there, why would one get married? Right? You would just directly follow and get out. The desires are there, that's why you get married. So therefore, engaging those desires according to the rules without attachment. Without attachment doesn't mean not doing them. It means doing, and doesn't mean doing them badly. Right? Renouncing something because it's trouble is renunciation of the mode of passion. Doing something grudgingly is the mode of ignorance. Mode of goodness means doing it in knowledge according to the rules, for the proper purpose. That's what's being expected. So the grihasta ashram, the rules of it are performed with that in mind. That's why grihasta is considered a step up from he's senior to a brahmachari. For a naistika brahmachari, that's another point. But if it's just a brahmachari who will get married, a brahmachari who is married is senior. Because One is learning the theory, the other is practically applying it. That means he's superior. Right? You know, someone in architect school and someone who's an architect, the architect's superior to the, you know what I'm saying?
So then, where would the expectation or reciprocation fit in there? Because I suppose it's, in a sense, I suppose it's our conditioning to work upon that model that, you know, you give something, you get something back.
Okay, so now we bring it to the point I didn't want to mention before, but now we'll mention it. It's called the 9-to-1 formula. Remember, mark this well, gentlemen. Okay, we're going to explain something to you. Another one of these great Vedic, you know, sweep it under the carpet and hope no one notices, you know, formulas in the Vedas. But we're going to explain it from a different angle. They eat twice as much, 4 times as clever, 6 times as envious, 9 times as lusty. Right? You've heard this one, no?
9 times as lusty, yes. His wife's prison.
Eat twice as much, 4 times as cunning, or clever, 6 times as envious, 9 times as lusty. Okay? So, in that explanation, that's how the women look at it, that's how the brahmacharis look at it. That's not how the grihasta men look at it. Eat twice as much means they value eating twice as much as a man does. Man, just as long as it gets, you know, from the plate into his face and doesn't taste terrible, that's fine. You know, that's why the women have to ask, is it okay? Is it good? Because they like good food. Like that. You understand? So that means, and you have to ensure they're eating good food. The ordinary is not good enough for a woman. Then they start to, there's nothing happening. They're 4 times as clever. Clever means it's intelligence. It's not, let's say, pure, let's say, analytical intelligence. It's practically applied intelligence. That's clever. You cleverly got something done, right? So that means they appreciate cleverness 4 times more than a man does. A man, something was clever, oh cool. Boy's clever, oh that's good. A boy's clever, you can't get better than that. That's why they like Krishna, he's so clever. Right? That makes sense? They like intelligent boys that are practical. Cleverness is there. So they appreciate it. 6 times as envious means envy affects them 6 times more than a man. That's why when another woman says something and then you work it out, oh, it's just this and that, don't get bothered. You've dealt with 1. But what about the other 5? That you haven't addressed. So you're not appreciating how much they've been affected. Oh, it's the big deal. She said that. Who cares? Okay, that's one part. What about the other 5? She does care. Because it affects them 6 times more than it'll affect a man. Right? So that's why they have to be so much supported, you know, socially and all this, and not allowed to be insulted by, you know, men it's obvious. You know, a good punch in the nose takes care of that. But insulted by other women, that's more delicate. So that means their clothes, their jewelry, you know, the different things, you know, all these different stuff like that. You know, whatever it is, the facilities that they have, the, you know, these are all part of the scene. I mean, if you don't like it, don't get involved. You know, don't get involved means don't get married. But that means don't get married means don't deal with women. Because they're all like that. Right? Does that make sense? 9 times as lusty means that lust does not mean sex. Because if it's wanted to be discussed, we can get into that. Men define that as sex. But actually, sex is not actually in any way important to women. Intimacy, yes. Sex, not so important. Right? The man, the sex is the whole thing in intimacy. Getting rid of the itch is what's important for the man. Getting rid of the itch is not what's important for the women. You got an itch, you scratch it, finished, okay. The preliminaries and the conclusions, that's what's important for women. Right? So it says 9 times lusty doesn't mean they're 9 times inclined towards sexual activities. It means they're 9 times more inclined towards sensual activities. Seeing nice things, hearing nice things, tasting nice things, smelling nice things, wearing nice things, being in nice environments. That's 9 times as lusty. You understand? Lust just means need. So their need for something is 9 times greater than a man's. You know what I'm saying? They're hungry. It's 9 times more important to them than it is to you. Right? They're tired. It's not. That's why you see is that this, that, because you're dealing on a bigger formula. Okay. Anybody else needs water? Do we need to take a break here? Otherwise, you can take a 2-minute break and then we can go.
Do you?
Just saying, very much like it. Anyone else? Well, we'll get to that. We're still answering his question, but you can just come and go.
No, sorry.
Because this 9-to-1 formula is very important. If you don't understand that, then the male concept of justice doesn't seem to work. Because we mentioned before, women are very just, so then it appears that they're not. So. But now a word from our sponsors. Well, let the others come back. Start again. Okay.
It's not a question related to it's just
no, but we didn't stop now that we're doing the water thing? Or? Understand? So that's what's meaning of 9 times lusty. So that's the formula that you're working on when you're dealing generally in need. You understand? So that means the women need 9 times more than what the man needs. Right? But just like here we live 100 years and it's perceived as 100 years. Right? And the heavenly planets live 10,000 years, but it's perceived as 100 years. You understand the formula? That means their 9 parts to them is 1. And your 1 part is your 1. But the women know how big your 1 part is and how big their 1 part is. That's why you have to put in 9 times more input, then you get 1 part back, and you want to go, hey, wait, that didn't balance. Because that was equal to what experience they got out of it. Does that make sense? You know what I'm saying? It's just like when the Pandavas went out for begging, right? Nekachaka, or whatever they got, they took everything, divided it in half went to Bhima. That was 1 portion. What was left, they divided amongst the other 4 brothers, Kunti and Draupadi. So half was given to 6 and half was given to 1. Now if he'd gotten just 1 part, then that would not have been equal. You understand? Because they would be satisfied, he'd be starving. Right? So he has to be satisfied, they have to be satisfied. So equality is on satisfaction, not on, numbers. You understand? Because the man goes, okay, this is there, we do this, we get this result and this and that. But the point is it's the experience of it that is important. So if they're satisfied with this spirit, you'll be satisfied with yours. Does that make sense? Okay?
In a situation where your in-laws are devotees as well, and things are happening which is not right, and your husband knows as well, but you're always being told that being devotees, don't be offensive, just let it, in the course of time they will realize themselves. Because being Indian, the way our culture is that you can't speak a lot in front of the elders, whatever the case is, just tolerate and be submissive and everything. But what at the time when the girl feels suppressed and you have things to say, but because of the devotee environment, you are I mean, your intelligence says as well, and the thing, and your partner says as well, you know, just forget it with the time, and the more they're chanting, they'll get purified and things will go right and everything. So how does a girl needs to behave in that manner? How does she cope with her faults, with her things, whatever is going in her mind, to keep it in place and just continue with her life? I mean, that is a situation which is like a bit of a dilemma. That, well, how do you behave as a devotee so that you don't offend any devotees and just carry on in your life, and and have no conflicts with your husband as well at the same time about it?
Okay. One is let us say you're out on the street, you meet somebody, right? You deal with them how? Means, let's say it's somebody who you could properly and pleasantly interact with. Would you do that? You know what I'm saying? Means, in other words, the situation, let's say you are out walking on the street and a very nice cultured lady that you've never met before stops and, oh, hello, who are you? You know, just, you know, wants to be friendly. So you would be friendly back, right? Now, what if she's a meat eater, you know, she's a divorcee, she, you know, drinks hard liquor, and, you know, she also has a few lottery tickets. You understand? That's the principle. Whatever is just the etiquette, how to deal, you deal that. Leave the rest. That's their personal thing. You want to discuss it? Talk to your husband. You know what I'm saying? In other words, they're going to progress at whatever speed they're at, right? And so, as long as that doesn't affect you, you know what I'm saying, directly, like they've decided that, you know, they're not so worried about eggs or something, so therefore then they expect the meal will have some eggs in it, and then they expect you to eat that. Then you can say, no, forget it. But if it's just they on their own, when they're out or when they're with their friends, they do things that are not exactly within the Krishna conscious things, that only actually affects them, don't worry about that. Because, you know what I'm saying? Because they're moving at the speed that they can move. You move at the speed you can move. So if you can help them, nice, but if not, then leave it. You know? At some point they'll figure it out, or if not, by you all behaving nicely, that will benefit them. Does that make sense? For that aspect, that's the social aspect.
Yeah.
And if it just gets too much, then sit down, you know, where it's not going to affect anyone else, and then talk to your husband about it. You know what I'm saying? But knowing that the conclusion is going to be this, but at least you could say it and just express it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But you just, like, sometimes when the things happen and it's specifically, it is affecting you because that is done for, in a way that it affects you. Right, and
so then the husband has to tell them that, you know, this is affecting their wife. And they should consider, if they want to do these things, do it on their own time. You know, it's their particular determination. They want to live or deal in a certain way, but it shouldn't affect her because she's got a different standard. You know, especially in Krishna consciousness, you can't, you know, it's like if she likes a high standard in the kitchen and you don't, then don't ask, you want to cook, don't ask her to help you cook. You know, or you want her to cook, then you follow standards that are proper, because it's not that her standards are wrong, they're supported by Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. You know, like that. You know what I'm saying? They can't have their cake and eat it. That's the problem nowadays. They want to claim they're Hindu and squeeze whatever they can from that, at the same time as they're completely modern and do whatever the hell they want. And personally, I don't buy it. They're all a bunch of hypocrite and nonsense. I'll stop there. You know what I'm saying? And just because they're devotees doesn't mean they don't have faults. Right? They'll make comments about the Westerners and their faults, so they have their own faults. Westerners are sinful, and they're attached to it, but it's their birthright. They are Malechas and Yakutas. So they do it, it's not good, it's not recommended, they shouldn't do it, but it happens. You know? And understand that I'm from a pious background and do all nonsense. That's not right.
So discussing with the husband is fine?
Discussing with the husband is fine, and if it's something that actually does directly affect, then he should discuss with them how to work it out. That's what I'm saying. They can't have the cake and they would say, the point is, oh, but we're the senior, we're the this and that. You're supposed to be respectful. Yes, because you're supposed to be respectable. We're going to be respectful anyway, but you should be working on being respectable. Because if the son is married, he can start saying these things to his parents. He's unmarried? No, he can't. But as soon as he's married, then technically he's the one that should be running the house, and his father should be taking sannyasa vanaprastha. And if he's not, then, you know, what happened to that Hindu rule? That's also Hindu. You know, your son gets married and takes up responsibility, he's pulling in the money, they step down. That's Vedic. That's Hindu. They're not doing it. They want to say, well, no, we're, you know, malechas. Then you're malechas. Then I have the right to tell you whatever I want, because that's what malechas do with their parents. You know what I'm saying? We shouldn't, but the point is they can't just take and choose what they want and only pick the good parts and leave all the other parts. And at the same time, they act like animals. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying this based on theory. I've experienced it myself, so I know what nonsense they are. You know, I mean, it goes, you know, it goes all both ways. You know, see nice parents, terrible children, also. You know, so it's just a matter of working out what's there.
And Maharaj, sometimes we might get married into a family where the wife may see things, for example, that the daughters are given more attention in the family than the son is given. But because the son may be a devotee, he may not expect to get that priority in his family. And also, if the wife's trying to be a devotee, she might think that we're meant to serve, so we shouldn't really mention it or say anything. But in the Vedic culture, it was always meant to be, as far as I would be aware, that... The point is you got married. Marriage was, it's one of the 64 items of devotional service mentioned by Rupa Goswami in Nectar Devotion. Mm-hmm. So then, marriage is based on what? You know what I'm saying? You're trying to blend family life and Krishna consciousness. You know? And so the two go over. If the overlap, it doesn't matter, you do these things, it doesn't bother, then there's no need to deal with it. But if it does bother, then it has to be dealt with. You know what I'm saying? So if the husband isn't bothered, should the wife also not be bothered that the husband's being treated like that?
She should talk to him and see what he wants in that case. If he really just feels that not, then she should try, if she can. But if she can't, then something should be worked out. So then the husband, on her behalf, then should try to make it work more nicely. You know, see, so if you're coming from a background that has so-called tradition, like that, then you got something more that you got to work out, to cut through what's reality and what's nonsense. But if you comes from traditional, you know, I mean, real traditions like that, then it's something that, you know, this is what's marriage. You're basing it on that, right? You know what I'm saying? Because they're saying, oh, it doesn't matter, we're devotees, but when you're getting married, you're kind of staying within your community, right? Like that, you're staying within your own social status within that community. You know what I'm saying? So if all that's going, then why not the traditions and customs that go with that, as long as they're not opposed to Krishna consciousness? If they're opposed to Krishna consciousness, of course, then we drop them. If they're not opposed, if they're neutral, or even possibly favorable, then why would we not be following them? You know what I'm saying? You marry someone who's like-minded, therefore you continue with these things that is of that. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yes.
Well, there's a flip side to all this, because as devotees, we could be a really bad example of grihastas, or married couples as well. We could show the spiritual side with chanting, with following the regs, we go to temple every Sunday, do our service, but as a couple, what are we doing fundamentally in the home, you know, to improve family life? Are we there when our family needs us? No, we're not, because we run to the temple because we think that's Maya. So,
no, but the point is the balance. The point is you marry somebody that has the same values of you as far as temple service and that. And so therefore you have the idea that you go to the temple to do those services, right? And that would work on a normal day and stuff like that. But if something happens and the family needs you at that point, then you have to take care of the family.
yeah. But the point I'm trying to make is, for example, a lot of us, we have duties at home, etc. But then how many of us sort of are inclined to keep the house in a nice order? If you have Krishna in your house,
I mean, that's part of the thing.
So the side of it is that even as a grihasta couple, trying to be Krishna conscious, as well as doing our sort of commitments to the temple or to your local sangha, you have a responsibility as a husband and wife to show that, well, yeah, I'm still interested in bringing up a good home, having a good family, as well as being Krishna conscious, because ultimately they are one thing.
Yeah,
being good Krishna conscious.
Yes, so the point is to understand the metaphysics that make it one thing. All these different principles that I've talked about, these are all Shastra. These aren't made up, these aren't gotten out of some, men are from, whatever is Mercury, the ladies, or whatever it is, it's not from that.
Yeah.
This has been gotten out of, this is Shastra. So that means you understand that it does connect it. The point is it's understood that these things are secondary connections compared to primary connections of chanting and everything like that. But the point is you have to see that it all works and balances. You keep it as close to primary as it will function nicely. Don't let it be less. If you can get it closer, if you can go 2 days to the temple, do. If then everything else works. If not, then you go 1 day. I mean, the rule is you're supposed to go every day. You know what I'm saying? So, therefore, you try to find what works for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But, the point is frustrated ladies don't necessarily like to go to the temple. Or sometimes frustrated ladies really like to go to the temple. So you have to figure out what's going on. Right? In other words, if they always like to go to the temple and don't care if you come or not, right? Or don't want to let you go to the temple, right? And they don't want to go, that means something's going wrong there. You know what I'm saying? It's a symptom that there's some need that's not being taken care of. Otherwise, why would they go to the temple and leave you behind? Right? They go to the temple, everybody goes to the temple. Is that okay?
Yeah.
You had something? No? Okay.
Well, in our society we have men should behave like strong. He should not interfere in women's business.
Strong means
more tolerant.
Smells or what is strong?
Strong means tolerant. Like tolerant in the way, like any affairs going on between mother-in-law and wife.
He's tolerant.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
just tolerate.
That's just tolerate means that's really strength. That someone else is suffering and you're tolerating their suffering. That's strength.
This is what Indian culture, like they are living in one family, like
Indian,
two brothers.
No, wait. Indian culture. That didn't sound like culture. You could say Indian. You could say this is Indian, but don't say culture.
Okay, Indians, right? Like one family you are living in, and then say, oh, don't interfere in women's business, stay away. And if your wife is suffering, then you are forced to say that, oh, you should keep her quiet, and she should not speak in front.
Who is telling you this?
Relatives, mother, and especially.
Mother's telling you this because one is she's telling you this because it's something you can't understand because you're not following any of these rules that I'm telling about. So you wouldn't even understand what's going on in the woman's world. So that could be one reason she's telling you that. The other reason she could be telling you that is she doesn't want you to get involved in her lording it over the family, and so therefore that then you don't tolerate, right? If your father's telling you that, that's because he doesn't want his wife, which is your mother, not talking to him for 3 days.
Your father is not there, and you are responsible for your mother.
So then that means she listens to you. But at the same time there are things that women have their things with each other, and the men really just can't be involved in. But then you should just have them explain what that is so you can identify when you should be and when you shouldn't. So if she says, don't get involved, and says, well, explain what does that mean, what does that look like, what kind of things, just anything? Because sometimes when my wife tells me stuff, then naturally I should come and mention it to you. If I'm trying to keep peace here, I can do that. So is it an ego trip, or is it a matter of it's just something you as a man won't really understand the women's interaction? You understand? There is that. There is a whole scene going on there that won't understand. So that's the one that stayed out of that. But you have to be able to distinguish between that and it's a trip and they're just telling you stay out of it, and it's actually diplomacy rather than fact. Does that make sense? But the point is stay out of it. But the point is the wife should also, things should work. Yeah, but you don't tolerate it going the other way. Is okay if the mother will step back, then the wife can't therefore lord it over the mother. You know what I'm saying? That's just as wrong as the other way. In fact, probably more wrong, because she's the junior. You know what I'm saying? So it has to be that it works. And they're going to have their days, but that's another thing. You have to just learn what are those things. You know what I'm saying? As I mentioned before, woman to woman is going to be different. So you have to figure out what is it with the mother and what is it with here. Talk to the mother, okay, then what is it she's doing wrong, just so you have an idea. Then talk to the wife and then try to put them together as possible. Is that okay? Yes.
Raj, isn't this idea of doing whatever works a little dangerous in that it can obscure, for example, you were talking about earlier how a lady, she is eternally a certain way, and that's just the way she is, and that's just the way she behaves, and full stop.
A woman means feminineness is a certain way,
way.
Not the particular woman, because she'll change in her life, and next life she might not even be one. Now see, in here, we're working on that. We're already accepting the philosophy and culture of Krishna consciousness. In this, we're trying to understand the metaphysics of it, on how it works. We're missing the point, and somehow or another, culturally, things aren't happening for us. And because of that, it might even be affecting our faith in the philosophy, right? So, therefore, based on that, we're finding if you understand the principle, and then trying to apply the principle, you find what detail works. That's correct. But if you just pragmatically just take what's going to work in the easiest way right now, and that's it, and it's not based on any tradition or any long-term vision, then that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is, this is the principle on which it works. Here are the various options that I have. Which one actually makes that principle manifest? That's the practical, and that's what we mean by that. Is that okay?
Yeah. I was just thinking that there could be a potential danger in that if, that we, as devotees, we have to, well, we need to understand that we go through a process of anartha nivritti, where we, there's kind of internal reflections and our various anarthas and how to cleanse them.
Now here, the bottom line is this. You've invited a woman into your life to add to dealing with the particular needs and attachments you have. But she also joined that for the same purpose. So fulfilling your needs can't compromise hers. There has to be a balance. So if taking care of the needs of your family, instead of doing it over 5 years, you've got to do it over 10 years. And that'll make it work for her also. then it works for all parties. Does that make sense? So you're trying to find something that works all the way around. But what I'm saying is, you need to work in that field. You have to have that reciprocation, but see what works for them, not for you. For you, what works is just being in the environment where you have family and wife and friends. So as long as you're in that environment and it's comfortable, then it's working. But you don't dictate how it should be working. You have to see what do they need, because they're also in it for their needs. And then you have to just see what's the best compromise, and then you have your priorities, and then you decide.
So in a sense, marriage is, in a sense, a better deal for the woman, in a sense.
This guy gets an A. Yeah, what does this talk about equality? They've already got 90%. It's the last 10% that they're fighting over. They're not fighting below 50. They're so clever they make it look like it's less than 50 to bring you up to 50. But the 50 is within your 10%. They want 50 of your 10%. Yeah. Like that. That's why in the beginning I didn't want to bring that point out much.
Mark, can I ask one question? It's regarding sensitivity and sense control you mentioned. Maharaj, suppose we don't have that sensitivity and sense control, I can't talk about myself right now.
So then why get married?
But can we act in a way that is pleasing to the wife in this situation?
Artificially.
Artificially.
Then pretend you're sensitive. Then pretend you're sensitive.
So Maharaj, in my case, I want to tell you, like, I've been associating with brahmacharis too much in the past. When I was staying in ashram for 3 years, and I've been associating with the brahmacharis too much. So
that's not a problem. Normally it's supposed to from 5 to 25. That's 20 years. You got 3. So 25, that's not 3 years is not too much. One point is this. You're associating with the brahmacharis is not a fault seen on the part of the ladies. They appreciate that.
yeah, but in certain cases I am not sensitive. So how can I?
But that's not brahmacharis. That's just being dull.
That's why I had to leave the ashram, because I was not.
Therefore, you can't say it's because they associate with brahmacharis, you were dull beforehand anyway. You know what I'm saying? Because the brahmacharis that are still in the ashram are sensitive. Otherwise, how are they still there? You know what I'm saying? So, what is the point?
Point is that how can I become sensitive and more sense control and
Want
deal with
to. Want to be, and ask your wife, how you can behave better? What would make it work nicer? Just ask.
Thank you.
Okay.
If for people from the Western world, if the families are broken, then would that impede in any way a boy becoming a man? Like
A boy becoming a man if the family's broken. Basically, men make men. So if some other man is involved, then it works. It doesn't matter. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if there's some other male role, then it'll function.
So in case of a person who lacked that in his childhood, a male role,
So then
he should be looking for
you
that.
get it now. Okay. There's plenty. I mean, even from Shastra, Arjuna was not a bad man. Anyway, Arjuna was Arjuna. Good. He's not a bad man. You know what I'm saying? So it's the point is through intelligence, anything can be gained that was not gained before. Through intelligence, through practice. That's what mana. That's the second stage of learning. First you hear, then you contemplate, use intelligence, and practice it. Like that. Through that, you develop good habit. Right? And when that good habit's established, then that becomes your values. Then it's changed. So it can be done. So that's why all these. Doesn't matter when you start, it can work. I've seen families where they've been married for 30 years and all that, and start using this, and everything works.
So the only impediment is our laziness.
Yeah. Because the laziness is actually, because without activity, then relationship can't be developed. Nothing can be developed like that. So it's laziness. Yeah. Okay. Because laziness is the opposite of knowledge.
And how do we overcome laziness then?
Yeah, I mean, of course, desire is there. You know it's there, just practice. You have to practice it. The other thing is that if you're committed, then getting married will definitely force you to get over laziness, because if you actually want to make the wife happy, then you can't be lazy. So she'll force you to not be lazy. Okay. Yeah. You were studying before, or?
No,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Raj, there's a lot of programs and a lot of young devotees involved, and often we ask them what kind of prasad they prefer to eat, and it's usually pizza or Western pasta or things like that. Just wanted to ask, you were saying it's better to eat Vedically.
It's better to eat, yeah, I mean, the main thing is that whatever you eat is connected to Krishna, right? That's the first thing. Because if it's not offered to Krishna, what's the use? At the same time, if it's not something that they'll eat, then they won't eat prasad. You know what I'm saying? So then try the things, if you're dealing with the young people, cook those things and throw in some Indian preparation on the side. But the point is if it's not good, how are they going to like it? You understand? You have a mother, I'm not you, I'm just saying, somebody has a mother that went to school, never learned how to cook. Then she got married, she had to start learning to cook. So it may be that her cooking hasn't really impressed him. And so to him, that's Indian cooking. You know what I'm saying? So therefore, if you want people to like the Indian cooking, make it good. You know what I'm saying? So they want pizza pasta, give them that, and on the side have something else. You know, so it's a snack. Then you'll find the girls will take it. So don't worry about the boys. If the girls take it, you know, and then they decide that this is good, then the cooking changes. You know what I'm saying?
Also, you were mentioning, I thought about the point that we should offer what Krishna likes to eat.
Yeah, so in your house you can cook what Krishna likes to eat, but you said you're having programs and cooking for these young people, so that you have to cook something that they'll like to eat. But what Krishna likes is that people are taking prasad. So you cook something for him, he likes that, and then they eat it, he likes that, so then it works. So in your house you cook, you know, what you think is the best, and for them you cook things that they can relate to.
So is it okay to offer things like to the deities to offer?
Yeah, it's one of the things you see in the 64 items is offer something that's considered a speciality, local speciality. So these days pizza is somehow local speciality, like that. You know, if it comes down to like a haggis or something, I try to skip that. You know, but you know what I'm saying, like that. The local Sunday roast. You know, you can just skip those ones. You know? But these ones have somehow internationally become the local food, right? So then that's fine. Because the main thing you're always offering is those things, and you put that on the side. So if you're cooking something for the deities like that, and you want to cook something for the program, cook whatever you're cooking for the program, and cook with Krishna, you know, a regular meal. You know, I mean, saying if that's what you're doing. If you're going to cook him a regular meal anyway, then make that and add these to it, you know. Like sometimes you have a meal and then there's a chop on the side or something. It's not technically part of the meal, but it goes along. You know what I'm saying? It's just like that. You know, you take it and these basically Western things are snacks. You know, like that. So then, is that okay?
Raj, I had a question about astrology. In terms of how much of our astrology actually can we change? For example, if it's destined that you're going to have a child of certain qualities, then by doing Garbhodhan Samskar or by getting the right dates, etc., will it really...
What's the problem? Qualities aren't the problem. It's the purity of the qualities that are the problem. Someone's aggressive. But if they're aggressive in a pious way, that's not a problem. Right? Someone's aggressive, you can come right up to you and say, talk, whatever they like, and introduce you to Krishna consciousness, or get up and give a lecture, or like that, So it just depends what it is. If the chart says that they're completely attached to, opposing, the Vedic principles of life and this and that, if that's what it is, then you could consider, doing something else. You know what I'm saying? But if it just says that there are qualities that seems to you to, but look at what would be the pure aspects of those qualities. You know what I'm saying? They're very interested in money, but then they can make big money, but use it all for Krishna. You know what I'm saying? So it doesn't have to be, like I once saw a kid, they put down the stuff,
Oh, yeah.
And the kid walked over and he grabbed the money, like that. And then, because it was right in front of the deities, and he grabbed the money, they're trying to get the money, like that. And then when they picked them up and then put it, he turned them so he saw the deities, and he took the money and threw it at the deities. So, there you could get, you know what I'm saying? So the point is, it's the pure element of it, so I wouldn't worry about it.
So the ceremonies allow it to be...
The ceremony has to be performed.
So then that will ensure that the child's pure.
Yeah, then you get someone who would use the pure aspects of that. You don't use Garbhodhan, then you get someone who doesn't necessarily use the pure aspects. Okay.
Do you know you're talking about how sometimes women, they take like 5 hours doing something. Like, my wife hasn't come today.
You're going to turn that video camera.
So she's usually either late or she times things really off, and so I've kind of taken a zero tolerance position on that.
So just take a neutral tolerance.
Yeah, so I mean I don't get annoyed or anything, but I'll pay the price later on.
The point is you be neutral, don't be...
So it's okay to do that, like...
No, that's the point. You take a neutral stance on it. Because for the woman, time is stretchable. You know what I'm saying? This is based on experience. So the experience is good, then it just goes on and on and on. It's not good, then, it should have been over yesterday. You know what I'm saying? It's just the way they are. So therefore, sometimes you're going to be sitting there and missing things and not doing things you want to do. But then things work. The point is you sit there and do that, they know you sat there and did that. So then because you're trying to please them, they'll try to please you by trying to be more on time.
But then that means I would have missed this program.
There's the tape.
Serious word.
That you have to work out.
Okay.
That you have to see what works. Now, if by doing that, going out, then she sees, okay, this is serious for you, and so there she'll be more careful. Great. But if it turns into a 3-day war, then you have to decide, if this is worth it, and you go back and you're happily ready for a 3-day, standoff, then no problem. Point is in any case, is that neutral reaction is what is necessary. So either you've done it before, and missed the program, or you've done it afterwards. So you just decide which is better. So if she'll learn by that, then you come to the program. You know what I'm saying? Because you try to base it around them, but it can't exclude also, just proper activities in that. Because the point is the man is establishing the field. But you have to be able to operate that field at a speed in that they're comfortable with. You know what I'm saying? There's also the possibility as a grihasta, like look at this scenario. It's a grihasta, it's a discussion on grihasta life led by a sannyasi. Right? So for most women, or men, for most, what does that generally mean? It's one of these hellfire and brimstone, like that, family life, the deep well. So maybe she didn't want to come.
No, she knows you're good. She wanted to come.
So then you should work out how to get it that she'll do. These are things that you personally have to work on. But you have to do that from a state of not being upset or angry or like that. You can't push quicker than something will move. Like
So that might mean staying at home.
Yeah,
or
it might mean staying and getting someone else to outwork the camera. But the other thing is this. Or the other thing is this. You know, depending on what happens when you go back, when the dust settles, at some point, you ask her what to do when there's important things like this, and you would like to attend, but she's not, the time-wise, she's not able to get, what should you do? And she'll tell you, and then work by that. But just because you do it doesn't mean she won't get angry. You know what I'm saying? But you just know that's part of the package. So if you're ready that you'll do this, she'll get angry, but you're not going to get angry back, you know, and you have made her upset, so therefore, and that's why you could say you're wrong, you know, so therefore then it'll work, you know, it'll work.
In the Vedic culture.
In English.
If I start Krishna, then will help me.
Okay.
In that time, woman never used to work, and she stays home and raise the children and do what husband like to do to Krishna, Lord Krishna. But nowadays, women.
You said work or walk?
Work.
Work. Okay. I was saying you walk, because that's because they went out.
No, but so nowadays they do so.
No, in the Vedic they would work also. They could. But generally that's if the husband's not there and he wasn't able to leave enough money. Then they would go out and get work. But it wouldn't be any work that would compromise their situation.
So nowadays they do, so is it in our duties, in the women's duties, is it any different? Or they have to perform all the
It's like
duties
this. Why would the woman's duties differ if the woman's needs don't differ? You understand? The duties match the needs. You understand? It's just like this. We'll go back to the thing. Man has to be sense controlled because the tendency is not to be. So that's his standard. He is to be sensitive because he tends not to be. Right? But a woman, it doesn't say she should be sense controlled because she is senses. She should be chaste. It means the application of her senses should be in one place, not all over the place. Right? And satisfaction, because she'll tend not to be satisfied. Sensitive she already is. You understand? Brahmacharis must be respectful. Why? Because kids tend not to be respectful. You know what I'm saying? So everybody, their particular duties are in line with what's there. So just because a woman has a job doesn't mean that her needs change. But it's not, but this would be the point, is that, okay, she has a job because she wants a big house, but she can't say, well, because I'm working now, the man has to take care of the house more than what would be expected, because that's not the way he works. If he's someone who gets into taking care of the house and, you know, taking care of things, that's another thing, but if not, so then in that case, then one would keep a house one can take care of with doing work. You know what I'm saying? So there is a compromise there. Or live in it, or, you know, so I'm saying you have the money to buy a bigger place, but you can't because you can't take care of it. So you end up with a smaller place, even though you have the money to buy a big place. Or you could not work and live in the smaller place. You know? Does that make sense? So the point is that the feminine needs won't change just because you work or don't work.
And what about, like I like to do study all the Vedic culture. So, and then I heard somewhere, I read somewhere that women are allowed to do all the Vedic ceremonies. I don't want to do.
No, culture is the application of the philosophy. You have the specific Vedic rituals of the samskars that deal with the fire sacrifice. That you can study it, you can know everything about it. The performance of it is only for the men.
Yeah, performance will be done by my husband, but if I can learn, is it okay?
That's fine. The women learn everything. Generally, they learn everything. They may not learn it in the Gurukul, they learn it from the husband.
And husband
means what they don't learn, the only thing they're restricted on from learning is the specific, you know, intonational tones of the Vedic mantras. They can learn the Vedas, they can learn anything. They just don't learn all these notes and all that stuff by sitting down in the class. So they pick it up by hearing it, that's fine. You know, the husband's always chanting it and that, and they, by hearing it, you know, year in, year out, they learn it, that's fine. But they're not sat down and taught that. That's the only restriction, is that one thing. They don't learn those and they don't perform yagas.
But what about like just not the mantras, but what is the explanation in that mantra?
That you can learn. Right? The Upanishads, the Brahma, the Aranyakas like this, that's fine. The Brahmanas, how they work. I mean, that one Shankaracharya wanted to talk with that one Karmakandi Brahman, and he said, well, first, before you talk to the master, you got to talk to the servant. So you talk with me first, like that. You know? So it's, you know, that's not a problem. There's no scripture that you wouldn't learn if there's an interest, like that.
And what about to encourage husband to learn that kind of things that I can learn from him because he is the leader of my life and spiritual life as well?
Try.
Sit him out the other.
Huh?
And his name is Krishna.
Oh, not a bad name, not a bad name. So here, like this. All the things that she wants to learn, you can learn from him.
Arrangement when he's not doing anything, so I need to.
Well, they actually should play Ajurvedis. So they've got a reason to.
Okay, so then why not?
Something.
See, because the
holding
point
him
is
behind.
the wife has to feel that her husband's special in some way or another that makes them stand out. Just like they want to be unique, the husband has to be unique. So you're Shukla Yajurvedi, right? Who else there is Shukla Yajurvedi? Okay, one other person. So that's pretty unique, not bad. You know what I'm saying? So that's what's important to them. You know, so that's do it. They'll be happy. Okay? And then they feel protected and taken care of. Okay. I think, what time is it now? 10. 10. Is that where we should go? No, we could go on tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd just like to express gratitude. Maharaj actually changed his schedule. That's what I can tell him for this bigger session. Thank you very, very much. I'm very grateful. I'm very touched.